I, Ethan Caldwell, once thought I had the life everyone dreamed of. Not because of money or fame, but because I had Claire Bennett, my beautiful wife who worked as a fashion journalist, and Ryan Harper, my best friend from college and ambitious real estate broker. We lived in a luxurious apartment on the Upper West Side, New York, where the city lights illuminated evenings filled with laughter. Claire and I had movie nights, her head resting on my chest. Ryan, who stood by my side on my wedding day, was always a solid support. I once believed nothing could break this world. But then everything changed. Claire grew distant, our conversations brief, her phone always locked tight. Ryan started avoiding me, canceling meetups, citing busyness with a joint project in Brooklyn. I told myself I was imagining things, that work pressure was making me paranoid. Until that night, when the apartment was dark, Claire walked in past midnight, high heels in hand, hair disheveled, lips slightly swollen. "You're still awake?" she said, her voice hesitant as if I were an unwanted inconvenience. I stood up, heart pounding. "Where were you, Claire?" She paused, just for a second, but enough for me to know she was lying. "Work ran late," she replied, brushing past me. The words were too smooth, too rehearsed. I wanted to believe her, but my gut screamed otherwise. Then I saw the email on her computer, sent mistakenly from Ryan. "Claire, have you told Ethan about us?" "About the baby?" My mind reeled. The baby. Claire, my wife, was pregnant. And it wasn't mine. "Is it true?" I asked, voice trembling. Claire looked at me, eyes cold. "I love Ryan, Ethan." The words stabbed through my heart like a knife. Ryan, the friend I called a brother, and Claire, the woman I built my world around, had betrayed me. Standing in the empty apartment, I knew this was the start of a storm. The neon lights from Broadway glowed outside the window, but in my apartment, there was only darkness. Claire had left, leaving behind a stifling space where laughter once echoed, now filled only with the sound of emptiness. The wedding photo on the bookshelf stared at me like a mockery. I grabbed the whiskey bottle from the kitchen counter, poured a full glass, but the liquor couldn't soothe the pain screaming in my chest. Claire, the woman I thought I'd grow old with, had chosen Ryan, the best friend I trusted more than family. And the child that wasn't mine, was the final blow that shattered every illusion. The days that followed passed in a haze. I didn't go to the office, letting calls from colleagues pile up in voicemail. My phone screen lit up with texts from mutual friends, hollow condolences. "You'll get through this, Ethan." A friend of Claire's even messaged, "Maybe you and her weren't meant to be." I deleted the text, feeling another stab. New York, the city that never sleeps, now only suffocated me with its honking cars and glaring lights. One rainy afternoon, as I sat on the couch staring at an empty whiskey glass, the doorbell rang. I hesitated, thinking it was another friend coming to console me, but when I opened the door, I saw Lauren Mitchell. She stood there, her coat soaked, dark hair gleaming under the hallway light. Lauren, Ryan's ex-girlfriend, whom I'd only met a few times at parties. Her eyes were sharp but held a trace of empathy, as if she too carried scars like mine. "You look like you got hit by a truck," Lauren said, her voice blunt, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. She tossed her bag onto a chair, scanning the messy apartment. "You planning to sit here and destroy yourself over those two?" I shrugged, voice hoarse. "What else am I supposed to do, Lauren? They took everything." She laughed, not mockingly but with bitter irony. "They took from me too, Ethan. Ryan dumped me like trash to chase Claire. But I'm not sitting around crying. I want them to pay." She leaned in, her eyes flashing with determination. "You want in?" I frowned, my tired mind struggling to keep up. "In on what?" "Taking down Ryan," she said, her voice low but razor sharp. "His real estate company is shaky. He's drowning in debt, faking financials. One push and he loses everything." Her words cut through the fog in my head like a beam of light. Revenge. The thought was both foreign and tempting. I shook my head, not in refusal but because I wasn't ready. "I don't know, Lauren. I just want to forget." "Forget?" She raised an eyebrow, her voice challenging. "You think forgetting will make the pain stop?" "They laughed in our faces, Ethan. They think they won. You want to let them live happily while you sit here tearing yourself apart." I stayed silent, looking out the window where rain streaked down the glass. Lauren didn't say more, just left a business card on the table. "When you're ready, call me." She left, leaving me with a thought taking root. Revenge. Not to win Claire back but to reclaim myself. That night I didn't drink more. Instead, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at the stranger there, dark circles under my eyes, disheveled hair, but somewhere, a flicker of fire remained. I couldn't let Claire and Ryan turn me into a loser. The next morning I shaved, put on a clean suit, and went to the office for the first time in a week. James Thornton, my boss at Thornton and Associates, a top New York real estate firm, looked at me with a mix of surprise and approval. "You okay, Ethan?" Thornton asked, his voice deep but warm. "Not yet," I replied, sitting across from him. "But I will be. I want to get back to work for real." Thornton nodded, pushing a stack of documents across the desk. "Hudson Yards project. Biggest of the year. Want to lead it?" I took the documents, the rustle of paper under my fingers like a reminder of the power I once had. "Yes," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. This wasn't just a project. It was the first step to taking everything back. That afternoon I called Lauren. "You were right," I said when she picked up. "I want them to pay. Where do we start?" Lauren's voice came through, laced with satisfaction and resolve. "Good. Meet me tonight at the bar in Soho. I've got something you need to see." As I hung up, the city lights streamed through my office window as if New York itself was whispering, "This is your chance." I was no longer the betrayed man. Under the dim glow of the Soho bar, the air buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses. I sat across from Lauren in a secluded corner, her martini glinting in the light, while I gripped a cold beer trying to stay calm. New York pulsed outside the window, but inside me a fire smoldered. Lauren slid a stack of documents across the table, her eyes sharp as a blade. "Here," she said, her voice even but loaded with intent. "Ryan's books. He thinks he's clever but not clever enough." I flipped through the pages, numbers and forged emails painting a picture of guilt. Ryan had inflated profits, hidden debts from shady investment funds. His real estate company, Harper Properties, teetered on the edge, one push away from collapse. "How'd you get this?" I asked, eyes glued to the papers. Lauren's lips curled into a half smile, half secret. "He used to let me handle some documents when we were dating. I kept a few things just in case." She sipped her martini, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Now's the time to use them." I nodded, my mind racing with possibilities. Ryan, the guy who stood by me at my wedding, was now the enemy I wanted to crush. Claire, the woman I loved more than myself, would soon see how foolish her choice was. "What's next?" I asked, voice low but firm. "We hit his weakest point, investor trust," Lauren replied, her fingers tapping the table. "I'll send these documents to a friend at the Financial Times. One well-timed article and Harper Properties is done." I took a deep breath, feeling both exhilarated and uneasy. "And Claire? Will she know?" Lauren shrugged. "She doesn't care about Ryan's business. But when it all falls apart, she'll feel it. Deeply." I left the bar with mixed emotions, walking along Soho's sidewalks where couples and groups of friends laughed under streetlights. New York never stopped moving, and neither would I. The next day I stepped into Thornton and Associates, suit pressed, hair neat. James Thornton, with his sharp but warm gaze, called me into his office. "Hudson Yards is heating up," he said, sliding a stack of documents across the desk. "Got any intel on Harper Properties?" "Heard they're in trouble." I smiled, keeping my cool. "I've heard rumors. They're losing investors. Probably not worth partnering with." Thornton nodded, jotting something down. The seed was planted. That weekend I got an invite to a real estate event at the Plaza, a lavish affair with big names in the industry. I knew Ryan and Claire would be there, and I wanted them to see me, not the betrayed Ethan but the new Ethan in control. I chose a charcoal suit, a red silk tie, and walked into the ballroom with confidence. Chandeliers sparkled overhead, violins played softly, but my eyes found Claire instantly. She stood beside Ryan, her gown clinging to her, but her smile was forced. Ryan, in a wrinkled suit, looked sleep-deprived, his eyes darting nervously. Lauren appeared beside me in a tight black dress, drawing every eye. "Ready?" she whispered, lightly linking her arm with mine. I nodded, my pulse quickening. We approached a group of investors, where I deliberately spoke loudly about Hudson Yards, emphasizing Thornton and Associates' stability. "This industry needs reliable partners," I said, glancing at Claire. "Not everyone can handle the pressure." Claire stiffened, her eyes meeting mine, then flicking to Lauren. I saw a flash of jealousy and it thrilled me. Ryan, a few steps away, tried to charm an investor, but the man cut him off, excusing himself. Lauren whispered in my ear, "Ryan's biggest investor pulled out this morning. He's panicking." I smirked, victory creeping in. But when Claire's eyes found me again, I saw unease in them. Not regret, not yet, but the first sign of doubt. She was starting to realize the perfect world she chose was crumbling. As I left the event, Lauren at my side, the lights of Fifth Avenue glowed on her face. "Did you see Claire's face?" she asked, her voice tinged with amusement. "She knows she's losing everything." "Not enough," I said, voice low. "I want them to feel it bit by bit." New York that night felt like my accomplice, its skyscrapers gleaming as if cheering me on. The plan was in motion, and I didn't just want Ryan to lose his company or Claire to regret her choices. I wanted them to understand they underestimated me. And the price would be steep. On Monday morning I stepped into Thornton and Associates, sunlight streaming through the glass, illuminating plush carpets and walnut desks. No longer the sluggish Ethan, I wore a navy suit, hair slicked back, eyes sharp as a blade. The Hudson Yards project was becoming the talk of New York's real estate scene, and James Thornton trusted me more each day. "You've got good instincts, Ethan," he said in a meeting, nodding as I outlined expansion plans. "Keep this up, you'll be at a bigger table soon." I smiled, but my mind wasn't just on Hudson Yards. I was thinking of Ryan and how I'd turn his empire to dust. Outside the office I started taking care of myself. I joined a gym in Chelsea, where the clang of weights and heavy breathing drowned out my anger. Each punch into the bag was Ryan's face in my mind. I cut back on alcohol, switching to water and black coffee, and even took a painting class in Brooklyn, sketching New York skyscrapers and bustling streets, like I was sketching a new life. I wasn't the man Claire and Ryan left behind. I was Ethan Caldwell, becoming unstoppable. Lauren remained a key ally. Over quick meetings at Lower East Side cafes, she updated me on Ryan. "He's borrowing from a loan shark in Queens," she said, sliding an espresso across the table, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Thinks he can hide it, but I found the contract." She handed me a file, proof Ryan was mortgaging Harper Properties' future to save it. "If we leak this," she continued, "the remaining investors will bolt like rats from a sinking ship." I nodded, flipping through the pages, feeling their weight. "How do we leak it without leaving a trace?" I asked, eyes on the documents. Lauren smirked, her eyes glinting. "I've got a friend at the Wall Street Journal. One article with anonymous sources will detonate it. But you need to do your part, keep Thornton close, make his firm the go-to when Harper Properties falls." I agreed. At the office, I subtly hinted to Thornton about the risks of partnering with unstable firms like Harper Properties. "Heard they're having cash flow issues," I said in a meeting, my tone casual as if discussing the weather. Thornton frowned, made a note, and I knew he'd act. Another major investor ditched Ryan by the end of the week, as Lauren predicted. But the moment that truly made me feel powerful was when Claire reached out. A text came late at night as I sat in my apartment, staring at the Madison Avenue lights. "Ethan, can we talk?" Short, but I sensed her desperation. I didn't reply right away, letting her wait, letting her wonder if I still cared. An hour later, another text. "I know I don't deserve it, but I need to see you." I smirked, sipped my coffee. Claire was feeling the cost of her choices. I chose to respond not out of pity but because I wanted to see her face me, the new Ethan, not the one she abandoned. "Meet me at the cafe on Bleecker, 7 p.m. tomorrow," I texted back, then tossed the phone onto the couch. I knew she'd show. Meanwhile, I heard from a colleague that Ryan was losing control. He showed up to meetings looking haggard, snapping at people, even arguing with Claire in front of Harper Properties' office. "They're not the perfect couple anymore," Lauren said over the phone, her voice gleeful. "Claire's doubting Ryan, especially now that the money's drying up." I nodded, though she couldn't see. "Good. Let them tear each other apart." New York, with its bustling streets and towering skyscrapers, seemed to be on my side. Every step I took, every handshake with an investor, every nod from Thornton, was a brick in rebuilding my empire. But I didn't just want success. I wanted Ryan and Claire to see how wrong they were to betray me. And I wanted them to feel, bit by bit, the collapse I was orchestrating. The cafe on Bleecker glowed in the sunset, the smell of espresso mingling with soft jazz. I sat at a corner table, my gray suit fitting perfectly, my eyes scanning my laptop but my mind on the moment ahead. Claire would come, and I was ready to face her, not with the weakness of a betrayed man, but with the confidence of one who'd reclaimed himself. New York outside was vibrant, but Claire and Ryan's world, I knew, was cracking day by day. The door opened and Claire walked in, a beige sweater dress hugging her growing belly. Her once shining blonde hair was dull, her eyes shadowed with faint circles. She paused when she saw me, a flicker of unease crossing her face before she approached. "Thanks for agreeing to meet," she said, her voice small but trying to sound composed, sitting across from me. I closed my laptop, tilted my head, and didn't rush to respond. Silence was a weapon, and I wanted her to feel its weight. "Talk, Claire," I finally said, my voice even, devoid of emotion. "Why am I here?" She bit her lip, fingers twisting the edge of a napkin. I just want to apologize. What I did with Ryan, I didn't think it would go this far. She looked up, her eyes holding a fragile hope. I was wrong, Ethan. I know that now. I laughed, a harsh sound cutting through the cafe's warmth. Wrong? You realize that now, when everything's falling apart. I leaned forward, voice lowering. You chose him, Claire. You left everything to chase a loser. Don't expect my pity. Her face paled, but I didn't stop. How's Ryan doing lately? His company's crumbling, investors are fleeing, and I hear he's in debt to people he shouldn't mess with. I paused, watching her reaction. Claire's head dipped, her shoulders trembling slightly, and I knew my words hit hard. She whispered, barely audible. I didn't know it would get this bad. Then she looked up, eyes pleading. Ethan, I just want to fix things. For the baby, Don't bring the baby into this. I cut her off, voice sharp as a blade. That's not my problem. I stood, pulled out my wallet and dropped a few bills on the table. Good luck, Claire. You'll need it. I walked out, not looking back, victory mingling with a bitter aftertaste. Claire was regretting, but there was no room for her in my life anymore. On Bleecker Street, the cool air enveloped me, the sound of honking cars and New York's pulse reminding me I was on the right path. Lauren called as I stepped into a taxi. You saw her? She asked, voice brimming with curiosity. Yeah, I replied, staring out the taxi window as city lights streaked by like time itself. She's broken, Lauren. Regret all over her face. Lauren laughed through the phone, sharp and clear. Good. But we're not done. Ryan just lost another big contract. He's begging investors, but no one's touching him. And I sent the loan docs to the journalist. The article drops this week. I nodded, though she couldn't see. Make it faster. I want him to hit rock bottom. Lauren agreed, and I hung up, letting the taxi carry me through Manhattan's buzzing streets. Our plan was taking shape, piece by piece. At Thornton & Associates, I kept strengthening my position. James Thornton invited me to lunch at an upscale midtown restaurant, where executives traded million-dollar handshakes. You're doing great, Ethan, he said, raising a glass of wine. Hudson Yards is yours. But keep an eye on Harper Properties. Rumor is they're about to collapse. I sipped my wine, keeping a neutral face. Not surprised. They've been mismanaged for a while. Thornton nodded, and I knew he'd act. Another investor dropped Ryan the next day, as I expected. Lauren texted later, Ryan fought with Claire in public at a restaurant yesterday. She cried, he yelled. It's unraveling. I smiled, not out of joy but a cold satisfaction of knowing I was winning. Ryan was losing control, Claire was breaking, and I was the one pulling the strings from the shadows. As night fell, I stood on my balcony, the Empire State Building's lights flickering in the distance. New York, the unforgiving city, was on my side. But I knew this victory was just the start. I wanted Ryan and Claire to not only lose everything but to face their own stupidity. And I'd make sure it happened. The lights from Times Square billboards flashed, reflecting off skyscraper glass, but Ryan Harper's world was sinking into darkness. The Wall Street Journal article hit as Lauren predicted, its headline cold and cutting, Harper Properties, real estate empire on the brink of collapse. The words exposed the truth, shady loans, faked financials, and an investigation tightening around Ryan. I read it on my phone in Thornton & Associates' office, morning sunlight streaming through the glass. A faint smile crossed my face, not joy, but the satisfaction of delivering the decisive blow. Ryan was now a whispered name in New York's real estate corridors. Investors fled, contracts were canceled, and Harper Properties' Midtown office became a ghost town, locked and sealed. Lauren texted, they just froze his assets. Ryan's desperate, calling everyone for help. I sipped my coffee, letting the message sink in. He was falling and I was the one who pushed. Claire wasn't spared from the storm. I heard from a colleague she'd moved to a small apartment in Queens, far from Manhattan's glamour. The baby was due soon, but her dream of a perfect family with Ryan was ashes. Part of me wanted to see her completely broken, but another part, small, weak, felt a twinge of pity. I crushed it instantly. Claire chose this path. I decided to invite Ryan to my office, not to help, but to confront. I wanted him to look me in the eye, see the man he betrayed now standing at the top. When my assistant announced Ryan's arrival, I adjusted my tie, sitting behind my wide desk, the glass window behind me framing New York's brilliance. Ryan walked in, his suit wrinkled, face gaunt, eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights. He was no longer the smug guy who joked beside me at my wedding. Ethan, he started, voice hoarse, almost pleading. I know you're angry. But I need you. My company, it's collapsing. I cut in, voice calm but eyes sharp as knives. I know, Ryan. All of New York knows. He flinched as if slapped. You could help me. Thornton and Associates, you've got connections. Just one word, I could. I stood, walked around the desk, closing the distance. Help you. After you stole my wife, wrecked my life. I paused, letting the words sink in. You think I'm that stupid, Ryan? I know everything, the loans, the fake numbers, all of it. And I made sure everyone else knows too. His face went pale, lips trembling. You're behind this? His voice broke as if realizing a horrifying truth. I smiled coldly, stepping to the window, looking down at the traffic below. You underestimated me, Ryan. Big mistake. I turned back, voice low but sharp. Now get out. You've got nothing left here. He stood frozen as if nailed to the floor. Then, shoulders slumped, he turned and left, his figure fading beyond the door. I sat down, victory surging but emptier than I expected. That night, at a real estate gala at the Waldorf Astoria, chandeliers sparkled over elegant gowns and tailored suits. I arrived as Thornton and Associates star, introduced as the new face of Hudson Yards. James Thornton clapped my shoulder, presenting me to executives who nodded approvingly. But then Claire appeared. She wore a simple blue dress, no longer radiant, but her eyes locked on me from afar. As I spoke with an investor, she approached, voice shaky but trying to sound resolute. Ethan, I need to talk to you. In front of everyone if I have to. The crowd hushed, eyes turning to us. I tilted my head, voice cold as stone. Go ahead, Claire. But I doubt there's anything worth hearing. She took a deep breath, eyes glistening. I was wrong, Ethan. I chose wrong. Ryan, he's not who I thought. I just want, she faltered, voice choking. I want to come back for the baby, for us. Murmurs spread through the crowd. I stepped closer, voice low but audible to all. Come back. Claire, you threw us away long ago. Now you want what? Someone to save you from the mess you chose? I shook my head, eyes fixed on her. I've moved on. You haven't. She stood there, face pale, speechless. I turned, walking through the crowd, leaving her with their curious stares. Lauren, nearby, winked at me as if saying, well done. As I left the gala, New York's cool air enveloped me, the faint sound of violins lingering from the ballroom. I'd won. Ryan lost everything, Claire was broken. But as I stepped into a taxi, a strange feeling crept in. What was this victory worth, when my heart still carried unhealed scars? The days after the Waldorf Astoria gala felt like New York was bathed in my triumph. News of Ryan Harper's collapse spread across real estate forums, from Flatiron cafes to Wall Street's plush offices. Harper Properties was now a cautionary tale of arrogance and fraud. Ryan, the man who stood beside me at my wedding, was a shadow, shunned by investors, hounded by lawsuits. Claire, the woman I once loved, lived in a cramped Queens apartment, carrying her unborn child and wordless regrets. I'd gotten what I wanted, they paid. But sitting alone in my new Tribeca apartment, looking over the shimmering Hudson River, I felt an undefined void. Lauren called one morning, her voice sharp as ever through the phone's speaker. You see it? Ryan just sold his Chelsea apartment to cover debts. He's begging for jobs at small firms, but no one will touch him. She paused as if expecting me to erupt in joy. But I stayed silent, fingers tracing the rim of a cold coffee mug. You okay, Ethan? Lauren asked, her tone softer, a rare hint of concern. I'm fine, I said, but my voice sounded foreign. I thought this would feel different. I stood, stepping onto the balcony, where a cold breeze carried the river's salty scent. Revenge had warmed me once, but now, with the fire burned out, only ashes remained. Lauren came to my apartment that evening, bringing a bottle of wine and her usual smug smile. You did it, Ethan, she said, pouring 2 glasses. They lost everything. You won. She raised her glass, but I didn't touch mine. I looked at her, the woman who pulled me from the abyss, and realized she carried scars like mine. But while she reveled in victory, I found myself at a crossroads. Do you ever wonder, I said, staring at the wine, if this was worth it? Destroying them doesn't bring back what I lost. Lauren frowned, setting her glass down. Worth it? They deserved it. You can't let them laugh in your face forever. But her voice lacked its usual certainty, as if she too was questioning. I turned away, gazing at the Hudson where ship lights twinkled. Lauren was right, they deserved it. But I couldn't deny the emptiness gnawing at me. I'd rebuilt myself. My career soaring, Thornton and Associates seeing me as their ace, Hudson Yards putting my name in business magazines. Yet each night as New York's lights dimmed, I still saw Claire and Ryan, not as enemies, but as fragments of memories I couldn't let go. I started seeking an escape. One afternoon, I signed up for a painting class in a small Greenwich Village studio. The smell of oil paint and the glide of brushes on canvas brought a peace revenge couldn't. I painted rainy streets, skyscrapers blurred in fog like I was painting myself anew. An old artist with silver hair, my teacher, said, "Art doesn't fix the past, but it helps you live with it." His words stuck with me. Claire texted again one night as I worked on an unfinished sketch. "Ethan, I know you don't want to hear this, but I need you. For the baby." I stared at the screen, finger hovering over the delete button. She chose Ryan, chose a delusional dream, and now wanted me as her savior. I deleted the text, feeling relief like dropping a stone into the Hudson. Lauren and I stayed in touch, but I felt the distance growing. She wanted to keep playing the game, hunting people like Ryan, but I didn't. "Getting soft, Ethan?" she asked during one meeting, half joking, half serious. "No," I replied, meeting her gaze. "I just want to live, not chase ghosts." She nodded, but her eyes showed disappointment, like I'd abandoned part of the fight she still lived for. New York, with its relentless pace, taught me time waits for no one. Ryan was a forgotten name, Claire a fading memory. I'd won, but at a cost. I stood on my balcony, breathing the night air, hearing distant car horns. Revenge gave me strength, but it didn't give me peace. I stood on the balcony of my new Tribeca apartment, where the Hudson River shimmered under the moonlight, reflecting streaks of light like a living painting of New York. This city, with its sleepless streets and skyscrapers reaching for the sky, had watched me fall and rise. Ryan Harper was now a faint name in real estate gossip, a lesson in arrogance and failure. Claire Bennett, the woman I once placed my world in, was a stranger, trapped in her wrong choices. I had won, but this victory didn't feel as complete as I'd imagined. The Hudson Yards project put my name in magazines, from Forbes to Crain's New York. James Thornton, with a rare but proud smile, called me into his office one morning, sunlight flooding the room. "Ethan, you didn't just save this project, you reshaped it," he said, sliding a new contract across the desk. "Want to lead our new Boston branch?" I looked at the contract, its numbers and terms like a confirmation. I was no longer the betrayed man. But I didn't answer right away. I needed time to know what I truly wanted. I kept up with the painting class in Greenwich Village, where the smell of oil paint and the sound of brushes on canvas became my solace. One afternoon, I painted a Soho corner, neon lights blending with passing shadows. My teacher, the old man with silver hair, looked over my shoulder. "You're painting not just the street but your soul," he said, his voice low like sharing a secret. I nodded, realizing each stroke was a step toward letting go of the past. Lauren still showed up, but our meetings grew sparse. She came to my apartment one evening, bringing bourbon and her familiar smile. "You're pulling away from me, aren't you?" she asked, sitting on the couch, her eyes probing. I sipped the bourbon, its bitterness spreading on my tongue. "Not pulling away from you, Lauren. I just want to live differently. Revenge pulled me out of the pit, but it can't be everything." She looked at me, a flicker of disappointment in her eyes, then nodded. "You've changed, Ethan," she said, standing. "But if you need me, you know where to find me." She left, leaving me with the bourbon and quiet thoughts. Lauren had been my guiding flame, but I couldn't keep burning with hatred. A text from Claire came late one night as I worked on a new painting, a misty New York where streetlights faded in the fog. "Ethan, I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know I'm sorry. For everything." I stared at the screen, finger hovering over the reply button, then locked the phone. Claire was no longer part of my story. I deleted the text, feeling a lightness like releasing a burden into the Hudson. I started embracing new things. I joined a running group in Central Park, where the thud of sneakers and panting breaths mingled with the morning air. I met strangers with new stories, from a banker dreaming of music to a teacher who loved poetry. New York, with its chaos and diversity, taught me life doesn't stop for scars. One evening, I walked down Fifth Avenue, where early Christmas lights twinkled, though the season was still far off. The crowd hurried, yellow taxis zipped by, and I felt the city's pulse in my veins. I stopped at a bookstore window where novels and memoirs sat neatly arranged. In the reflection, I saw myself, not the Ethan of painful days, nor the Ethan of vengeful rage, but a new Ethan, carrying scars but not defined by them. Thornton called again the next week, pressing about the Boston offer. "What do you think?" he asked over the phone, voice full of expectation. I smiled, looking out my office window at New York's endless sprawl. "I'll consider it, but I think I belong here," I replied. Boston was an opportunity, but New York was where I'd fought and won, not just against Ryan and Claire but against myself. As night fell, I stood on my balcony, breathing the cold air, hearing distant car horns. New York, harsh yet full of chances, taught me a lesson. Revenge might bring justice, but only letting go brought true freedom. I stepped inside, picked up my brush and continued my painting of the city, not to forget but to remember I'd overcome. And under New York's lights I knew I'd found myself.